Welcome to episode 2 of Riff and Chips. I'm your host, Phil Vernon, and on today's episode, we welcome Tom Cronin, guitarist and vocalist in the powerful and grotesque Celestial Sanctuary. Last year's insatiable thirst for torment was a perfect and punishing slab of groove-laden death metal, which, as well as blast beats, brutal stomp riffs and ripping solos, also featured arguably both the best artwork and track titles of 2023. I caught up with Tom just before Celestial Sanctuary were about to head out on tour with death metal legends Incantation, and a few months ahead of a huge slot at the Download Festival. Join us as we discuss taking joy from shit reviews, sick album art, and the situations where a full fat Coke becomes a necessity over a Pepsi Max. So, Tom, good evening. How's it going?
Good, mate. Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Honoured to be able to talk about my chippy order.
Before we get to that, we like to start the show. We like to start the show by talking about how our guests kind of initially got into the heavy scene.
Yeah.
So, what sort of age did you start taking notice of heavier music, and who were your kind of earlier gateway bands?
So like I as a real youngster, like this is going back to when I was like 12, 13. Like my first gig was Ozfest 2001.
Nice.
But so obviously I liked all that sort of like Kerrang metal and stuff like that, but my sort of like gateway into like underground like heavy UK stuff came from like a mate asking me if I wanted to go to a hardcore gig. We were like 15, I think. And it's like a local band of ours, like called Volunteers.
Yeah.
They're like a hardcore punk band. And he said, like, yeah, come along to that, like that it'll be sick. And there's also this band called One Step Down playing, who kind of just sounded like Madball,
Yeah.
or like Sick of It All, and one of their songs was named after a Sick of It All song. So that was kind of like my gateway into it, and I was just sort of like stood at the side, like just watching all these kids like go fucking mad, and I was like, what is this? Like, it's mad. And so that was kind of like what hooked me into like actually wanting to get involved, and that's what made it seem like it was like a really like attainable thing that I could just go to a show and either like mosh, or B, like strike up a conversation, like even though I was an awkward teenager, with some like-minded outcasts, and get a band going, which is exactly what I did.
Yeah. So is this around the kind of, obviously talking around the kind of hardcore sort of time, and are we talking around like kind of like the Stamping Ground sort of era, or, you know, just from you going off, you know, Ozfest 2001, or are we talking kind of almost pre that?
Funnily enough, like no, like I didn't realize Stamping Ground were a hardcore band until like much later on in life.
Yeah.
So I come across Stamping Ground carved from empty words because like a mate's older sister's brother was like, oh, you guys like Slipknot? Well, that's shit compared to this. And he like burned like all three of us like this Stamping Ground CD, and like I caned the fuck out of it. I listened to it so much. But yeah, so I didn't realize that they were like considered a hardcore band. I just thought it was like the heaviest shit ever.
Yeah. They went super hard. One thing I always remember about that band was their drummer was amazing.
Yeah.
Like so good. Like his feet were just unreal. I think at the time, like, you know, thinking of other bands that were around at that time, like obviously you had, you know, even the heavier bands like Slipknot had sort of double kicks, but I think they were one of the first bands I can really think about that had like so much like fast feet. You know, before I started listening to Decapitated and kind of, you know, started bands like that sort of thing, it was, you know, Stamping Ground, one of those, first kind of really insane drummers that I started taking note of, I think.
Oh yeah. Like, and yeah, when you hear a band like that when you're like 14 and you have no understanding of like technique or the fact that people just practice for years to get that good, it was just this sort of like, whoa, like I can't believe someone is this good.
Yeah, I remember hearing, I think it was on a Kerrang CD, and I think it was one that was curated maybe by Casey Chaos. And it had quite a lot of extreme stuff on there. And that was one of my first kind of delves. I was probably 15, 16 maybe, introduced me into a lot of more extreme bands. And they had Blessings Upon the Throne of Tyranny by Dimmu Borgir on there.
Oh, wow.
Which is obviously like Nick Barker at the time, which was weird because he kind of lived in Northwich, where I grew up and went to college. So he used to be in like the local pub that we go to at college sometimes. He was a bit of a miserable fucker. I remember our drummer, who was like an aspiring kind of black metal, death metal drummer, went up to him and was like, "Oh, Nick, like I'm a big fan. Can you give me some tips on blasting?" And he was like, "Just do this with your hands and move really fast. Now fuck off." I think he was notoriously hard to work with by all accounts, hence why he's never in a band for more than 2 albums. But...
Oh, okay, yeah. It's funny you have like a sort of similar thing that, because where I'm from in Suffolk, like Danny Filth is like our like local legend. So there's
Yeah.
all that sort of like lore around him about like people have tried talking to him and that like. So it's kind of funny, like two scary dudes in like black metal bands that
Yeah.
not approachable at all. I'm sure now, like they probably are, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, Celestial are more on the extreme side of metal, I guess we can call it.
Mm.
Was there a lot of, you talked about hardcore locally, was there much kind of like extreme metal in the kind of local scene at the time?
Oh yeah, like there's loads. And the thing is like because I'm from like what you'd consider like a small town, which is like over an hour away from anywhere good. We had this like crazy like strong scene, and there was like everything just like mixed together. So we had like we had the hardcore punk bands, we had like the more traditional hardcore bands as well. We also had like Methods of Punishment, which to me like they just sound like a death metal band to me when you're like 14.
Yeah.
And there was like tons of like bands like that around. I can't remember any others. There's one called like Bone Idol. They were sort of like more new metal leaning, but it's like a real beautiful thing because it was just like it's just people who had come from that sort of like more mainstream thing, and it's just
Yeah.
discovering all these like heavy bands. First sort of like delve into like extreme heavy stuff like on a local level was probably, I don't know if you remember the Boy Will Drown.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they had a band before that called Bloody Embrace, and yeah, we like they were a death metal band, and I
Yeah.
just remember like seeing them, and it's like us and this old like metal band that I was in, and we were playing in this like empty room. I think it was like the only people there were like us and them. We just watched each other's
Yeah,
bands,
yeah. I've done
and
that.
it's fucking too many times.
Yeah. I think the thing is with extreme music, obviously, like you say, I mean, anyone can have a go at it, but
Yeah,
to be good, you've got to be really good. Good guitarists, good drummers. And I think that's why it's kind of hard, especially when you're younger. We've all been in them bands that looking back, they were a rite of passage, but they were dreadful. And if you think about, being the bands you were in when you were 16, 17, if you're playing local shows with that, any death metal isn't going to be the kind of polished, tight, technical thing that it ends up becoming, or that it should arguably be.
no,
So I think, yeah, it does make it a bit harder to get into that extreme stuff because, you go to local band nights and it's full of, especially at that age,
yeah,
well, when we were growing up, new metal sounding bands or Green Day sounded like
yeah,
bands. It
yeah.
was kind of one or the other, really.
Yeah, I will say they covered Spheres of Madness by
Yeah.
Decapitated, and at the time I was just like, holy shit. But looking back, it was probably loose
Yeah,
as
yeah.
fuck.
But at the time you were stoked, it's like, oh, I know this one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So for like bigger shows, touring bands and stuff, did you have to travel elsewhere? Where did you used to have to travel to?
Yeah, so London would have been just where I went to. And it's funny because it was like, I can't remember who it was. I went to see, it's like Atreyu, He Is Legend, and Norma Jean.
Yeah, I went to that in Nottingham, weirdly. That's all.
Oh, did you? So like I just traveled down on the train with some guy that I didn't even know, because that was like the first big like touring American bands like that I went to go and see. Just traveled all by myself. But yeah, so like London shows at the Mean Fiddler, the Astoria, the Garage would be the sort of like go to, and the Underworld obviously.
Yeah.
We also had like Cambridge nearby, so like when I was again like literally a kid, I got to go. I mean, they called it the Misfits, but it was just, I think it's just Jerry only,
Yeah.
like ironically. You get like the odd thing come through Cambridge, and then Norwich is kind of like close as well, but that was always just like such a mission to get to, and like it's like once you got there, you just couldn't get
Yeah.
back. So it was, London was definitely like, even though it was the furthest, that was the place that I'd end up going.
My old band, so we're talking maybe around 2007, maybe 2008. So it was a band I used to be in with the now singer of 100-Year-Old Man.
Oh
It
fuck!
was like a tech metal band. We just wanted to be Iron Dissonance, basically, but we weren't good enough. We got booked to play this hardcore all day in Lowestoft.
Oh, the Seabreeze.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was,
Oh, sick.
yeah. So we played there, and it was funny. Like my granddad drove us down in the local Scout minibus that we hired for the day. It was fucking
Oh
amazing.
no way!
And from Manchester, it must have been like 7.5 hour drive down there. And they were using all our back line. They paid us. Bear in mind, this is 2007. We were a nothing band. They were like, oh, we'll pay you like 200
Yeah.
quid. So we were like, fucking hell, I'll take that now. So yeah, we went down, but all the bands all day were proper like Ruction bands. It was bands like Special Move.
Fuck, you know what? I reckon I played that show.
Yeah, you may well have done, yeah. And we ended up like
Yeah.
we either headlined it or we played and then Special Move played afterwards. We were way up during the day. And I remember there being like a
Mm.
dartboard on stage as well. Like, and like it was above like a, because it's like above like a working men's club sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
remember, yeah, we drove all this way and, you know, there's been all these kind of bands, youth crew beatdown bands all day. And we were like, oh, they're going to
yeah.
hate us. And
What was your band called?
Last Chance to Dance.
Okay, no, I don't remember it.
Not many people do. We started playing, and of course, it was all over the place. And there was this one part where it kind of slowed down. It was that trademark build up to a breakdown, and you could see people starting to get excited, like, "Yes, finally, we can go here."
Yeah.
And they started opening up a bit, and then obviously because we were trying to be dissonance, we fucked off somewhere else. And this one guy just physically just kind of like threw his hand as if to be like, "Ah, fuck this," and just walked away. Yeah, so that was like one experience of playing a show in Suffolk.
Oh
But
man. Funnily
yeah.
enough, that's actually where I met my fiance, who I'm getting married to later in the year. We met at the Seabreeze in Lowestoft.
Amazing.
Yeah, but what a
Yeah.
place.
Good times, yeah,
Yeah.
good memory. So obviously, as we tipped on before, you know, as people know, you play in Celestial Sanctuary.
Mhm.
You released Insatiable Thirst for Torment through Church Road in August last year, was that right?
Correct, yeah.
Absolute pile driver of an album,
Thank
so
you.
strong from start to finish. Also features utterly flawless examples of death metal song titles, which you have to be praised for. They're absolutely superb. You must have been stoked by the kind of overwhelming reaction that release got from press, the wider scene.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's just like, I'm sure you know, like being a musician, that like you can put your everything into something, but you can never guarantee like how it's going to be received. Obviously, you
No.
can hope like people are going to like it, but yeah, it's never guaranteed. So when like, when the first review came in and it was like overwhelmingly positive, I was like, holy shit. Like, okay.
Feel so much pressure kind of comes off you, doesn't it? You're like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. I mean, you just get so like sort of swept up in like the whole process that you kind of just forget what you're doing, really. But yeah, so it's just a massive like relief when you see that first review, or like you send it to like your mates who run a podcast. Like, so I speak to the lads in like Bangers and Mosh and the Heaviest quite a
yeah.
lot. And I have done for years. Like the guys in the Heaviest, like I sent them the first demos of Celestial Sanctuary before I even had like a full band, just because I was stoked on it. And
Mm.
yeah, like they obviously, I sent them the album, like one of the first people, and they came back and they were like, "This is so fucking sick." So it's just like that is like the sort of initial reaction, and then like when it just carries on and snowballing, and yeah, it's such a weird feeling. But I'm like grateful for like every single person that listens to it, even if like I don't know. I try not to read like all the reviews. So if there is a review that like fucking rips it to
Pants it.
shreds, like I hadn't
Yeah.
seen it, but I appreciate that someone's actually listened to it.
I think the best thing about having lots of good reviews is that once you've got loads of good ones, then you can kind of enjoy the bad ones a bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we found them funny because we were really lucky as well. You know, that our record generally was quite well received. So we were like, oh, it was really nice to see. And then you'll get one. I'm not sure where it's from now, but it wouldn't surprise me if you reviewed your record as well. But it was insane. It was like the ramblings of a madman.
Oh,
And it was
really?
like 15, 20 paragraphs, and some of the comparisons that they were making and some of the things they said, we were like, this is absolutely incredible. And by the end of it, we still couldn't tell if he liked it or not.
Yeah.
So I think it takes the pressure off those. Like you say, if the first one was a bad one, you're like,
Oh,
oh.
yeah.
But as soon as you've had 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, however many really good reviews,
Yeah.
it means you know that generally everyone's liking it. So you hear that one and you're like, you know what, that's quite funny,
Yeah,
actually. I
yeah.
quite like that one.
Definitely. Yeah. I do love it when, like you say, you get those reviews where someone has just like gone off and it's like they've either got a bee in their bonnet or something, but yeah, they're the funny ones.
So the album was self-produced, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So did that include kind of all tracking, including drums and things like that?
Yeah, everything. Like we did everything ourselves. I mean, like we're very lucky. Like in my old place, I basically had like a basement that was soundproofed, so I could like record vocals, bass, and guitar to my heart's content. James runs like, well, again, he's recently been evicted, but he had like a recording studio. So he's in the Infernal Sea as well, so he does it all himself for that band as well.
Yeah.
So we're just like in a very fortunate position where, well, I say I'm not using it as a present tense anymore because we're not going to do it like that again because it's too much of a stress. But we're
Yeah.
in a very lucky position where like not only could we like demo stuff and get some pretty good pre-production demos, like we could keep the recording process like going for as long as we want, which, like it helped us be happier with like the end result of the songs, but
Hmm.
it's also like, at what point do you just stop? And
That's the thing. If you
mm,
play too much, one good thing about going in with an engineer is, they're like, yep, that's cool,
yeah,
and you could sit there driving yourself mad, and
hmm
you maybe know, I don't know if you could play it better, because obviously you should always try and keep going until you think you've not got a take that's going to get any better.
mm,
But they hear it. I mean, obviously, if you're a producer yourself, you'll know this a bit more. I do demos at home and stuff, but when we go in with Johnny, he'll hear it, and obviously it's almost like he's hearing the whole mix in his head,
mm.
and he'll hear it and he'll be like, "That's great, I reckon." You're like, "Oh, I can play it better." And he'll be like, "There's like 5 guitars here. You're not going to be able to tell. It's
Yeah.
really not going to make any difference by the time I've processed it and put some reverb on it."
Oh
And I
yeah.
think they have that experience to be like, this is good enough. Let's move on.
Mm.
So, but I guess doing it your way as well, it takes the financial pressures off, because obviously knowing if you're booked in with an engineer and it's like, right, we've got this budget and we've got 3 weekends to do it in or whatever, it must be nice not to have that kind of constraint.
Oh yeah, totally. And it saves on like having to take the annual leave, so we can save that for like playing shows instead,
Mm.
which is how we've ended up like playing so much over the last year. But as well, like, it also afforded us like to be able to get like incredible artwork by James Balsamer, who did the album cover. Like, if we had to shell out for studios and stuff, maybe that wouldn't have been possible. So yeah, it has all kinds of benefits, but yeah, I still wouldn't recommend it.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Actually, literally the next thing I've got written down here was to shout out that incredible artwork by James Balsamer. He's obviously worked on covers for Spirit World,
Mm.
Frozen Soul, Soulfly in the past. Was there any of those things that you saw in particular that were like, yeah, we really need to follow, or did you just follow the guy on Instagram? Or
Yeah, I think it was the municipal waste artwork that I saw, which was like
yeah,
the holy fuck, like this guy's sick. And it was kind of like at the point where I was like literally figuring out who I wanted to do the artwork. And I saw his, I was like, nah, he's going to be like way too out of reach. He'd done municipal waste, and then like I think the Soulfly album cover came out,
hmm,
and at that point, and Spirit World had just come out as well.
yeah,
So it's kind of like from an indie label kind of band where we're doing everything DIY. I was kind of just like, there's no way we can afford that. So like, let's go somewhere else. But yeah, so it was those three pieces: Spirit World, Soulfly, and Municipal Waste. Where I was like, this guy's insane. Like, he could definitely like execute what we want. I like to think it's a good brief that I had written out for him, but what he created just like elevated what I had put in writing, like so much more. Like, I could never have written down what he had actually produced for us.
that's exactly what you want from an artist, isn't it? Like,
Mm.
especially if you're not graphically inclined, or not much of a drawer or whatever, you have this kind of vision and you put some words down, and for them to be able to kind of be like, I know what you're getting at here, and to, like you say, take that to the next level. I mean, you can't really ask for much more. I mean, it was one of the covers of the year. I remember when it first came out, I was like, this is fucking insane.
Mate, I still look at it to this day and I'm like, I didn't paint it, so I can be
No.
like, holy shit, like, it's so sick. I'm just so proud that like that's our album cover.
Yeah.
And it's just like every time I look at it, every time I like, when we're playing a show and I get like a vinyl out of the box to like give it to someone that's bought it, I just still look at it and go, holy shit, that's like so sick. Which is what you want.
Painted it. Was it like digitally painted, or did he actually paint it on canvas? Or
He's like fully digital now.
okay,
I think
cool.
he used to be like paint on canvas kind of guy, but I just think, help save costs. It's more
Yeah.
eco-friendly to
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if there was
yeah.
like a big physical original that
No,
somewhere that
man, I
you
wish.
had, or that someone had somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish. I really wish.
Art's obviously such a huge part of it all.
Mm.
I think especially with death metal records, it has this kind of long history of incredible, detailed, quite often grotesque artwork. I'm assuming like a lot of those things in the past are, of what have inspired you. Are there any
Mm.
kind of standout favorites from like other bands over the years?
The one that like stands out the most is like the fucking sickest album cover. It's just Altars of Madness by Morbid Angel.
Yeah.
I don't like any, like, if someone asks me, like, that's just the album that pops into my head. I don't know if it's like, 'cause it's quite like on paper, it's quite a simple like piece, but
Yeah.
it's just like the colors, the composition of it, like it's just a circle in a square as well. So it's kind of like fucked, and probably shouldn't be regarded as like a great album cover because it has so much negative space around it, or whatever. But yeah, it's that one. And just because there's so much detail, it's probably like, it's another Dan Seagrave one. It's the Left Hand Path
Yeah, of
Entombed
course. Yeah.
one. Like, it's just because of the level of detail. Like, I remember it's like obviously owning that on CD. I don't think you could quite make out the rest in fester in slime bit on the tombstone. And it's only like when I got the record of it, like later on after I started collecting records, that I like actually clocked that, and I was like, oh, that is so sick.
Earlier on this year, you went out on tour with Fuming Mouth. How did that go?
So good. Yeah, it's really, really good. I mean, I know they've got a very similar background to me, and I'm probably going to give like all the Grebos that love to use the line hardcore kids playing death metal. I'm just chucking them a
Yeah.
bone here. But like obviously I've alluded to the fact that like I came up in like hardcore punk,
Yeah.
and that was like my gateway. I don't know if I'd ever consider myself like a hardcore kid, but they're very much from like the same background. Like we swim in the same, like a lot of the same circles. So that was really cool. And I think that was kind of like reflected in the attendance of the shows. And like it was such a good crossover. You know, there was like various types of mosh in the pit. And it's just really nice to see. And that was kind of like a really cool like moment. I think it was like Newcastle. We played this really cool venue. And it was just so good seeing like so many different people just like going mad to the music, but like in their own way, like expressing themselves in their sort of like individual energy. And that
Mm.
was kind of like a common thread throughout that whole tour. So that was like a big highlight. And the fact that like all the shows are busy and people are coming out like that early on in January as well is obviously a massive testament to like what they're doing and the general health of like the UK underground scene at the moment as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that crossover has definitely been blurred a lot more
Mm,
recently. I think as soon as HM2 started coming into hardcore a bit, that
mm,
was the kind of first thing that blurred the lines. You know, you had, probably Nails. I can think will probably be one of the first bands that maybe were much more extreme, really, but
mm,
seemed to be kind of put in that hardcore category.
mhm.
And then obviously bands like Fuming Mouth coming along again, those kind of more HM2 sort of, adjacent bands that kind of bring that, more old school death metal sound in.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's been all over the internet. Obviously, the past couple of months was the Dying Fetus headlining that fest in America. And obviously everyone was going insane to it.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
realize that, when a death metal band breaks down, it's no different to a hardcore band breaking down.
Nah.
It's the very same kind of like zero sum sort of outcome, isn't it,
Oh
really?
yeah. Like at the end of the day, like we're all in like this same little boat that's very like obscure to like the real world. If you got a hard riff, it doesn't matter like what you label yourself as. Like it's just sick, whatever way you like skin it.
Any other UK bands that you want to shout out, especially some that maybe some other listeners might not be aware of?
Mutagenic Host,
Okay.
they're so sick. Just another death metal band. Really good people. They're just out there like working their asses off, playing whatever they can. They'll get chucked on hardcore shows and stuff, and they'll do that and they'll fucking kill it. They're working on a new album at the moment. I think they've just finished writing it. But yeah, Ash in particular is like a really good friend of mine. Like he's come out to so many shows. We've toured in other bands. We've just gone to shows together. It's cool when you get people like that in the scene. But yeah, as well, another band that came across on the Fuming Mouth tour, a band called Disengagement. They're another death metal band, and as well, kind of that very similar background. But I really like that their shtick is that they're like death metal, but in E standard, and I got a lot of time for that.
If it's the band I'm thinking of, I think the vocalist used to be in a band called Bays that actually went on tour with my old hardcore band, All We Have, kind of back in the day.
Oh,
I
okay.
think if it's who I'm thinking of, it's the guys that were involved in that. And they've been in lots of other
Mm,
Manchester bands since, kind of crossover bands and
yeah.
stuff. I'm not sure if maybe some of them were in Below, potentially.
Yeah, the singer mentioned a bunch of bands that not only had he been in, but like others had been in. But I think it's like kind of thing like when you're talking to people that have like been around the block, I think there's kind of just that like mutual respect there of you know the deal, like you know how hard this is,
Yeah.
and you kind of just like connect on that.
I know you've already had your tea, but it's time to start feeling a little bit hungry again because we're going to drop the baskets in the fryer and get ready for some. It's time for Chippy Tat, Tom.
Yeah.
If I was to come and visit you in your, humble village or wherever you live, what
Mhm.
local chippy is it that you take me to?
If we're saying very local to my town, we'd probably go to Hendo's in Bury St Edmunds. Sorry.
Not Manchester.
Not Manchester, no. Bury St Edmunds, the Tory town. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, this is like where I grew up. I say grew
Hmm.
up. I grew up in a shitty little town on the outside, but this is like where I went to school. This is where I met all my mates. But yeah, so Hendo's here. But if we've got some budget to hop in the
You can
car.
take us to wherever you like.
Oh, fuck it. Let's go to the coast. Let's go to Oldborough. And we'll go to the
Oldborough.
Golden Galleon.
Oh, that's a good name as well.
Yeah. It's very good there. I think it's won some awards for like the best chippy.
I'm more than happy to chuck in the petrol money for a journey to a good chippy.
That's worth it.
You know, you're ordering chips.
Mhm.
Firstly, what size portion of chips do you order?
It like up until recently, it would have definitely been a large, like no doubt about it. If I didn't have a wedding coming up, and if I wasn't trying to get in shape so I can perform better live,
Yeah.
it would be large. But yeah, I'll be sensible. I'll go for a regular.
What's your main item that you have with your chips?
So these guys don't have it. If they do, then it's the veggie sausage, like the jumbo veggie sausage.
Okay.
Not battered. But yeah, as they don't at this place, I'm going to go for the haddock.
Okay. Haddock. Yeah, that's the first choice of haddock.
Yeah.
An often overlooked fish in the way of the cod.
I mean, it tastes exactly the same as cod. I don't know if it's still the case, but I heard that cod was struggling a little bit because of the old overfishing.
Yeah.
So I just always go for the haddock, like by default, just to help the cod out a little bit.
Help the numbers.
Help them out, yeah. Help them get them numbers up.
That's what we want, some considerate ethical chippy in.
Yeah.
So are you slathering it in salt and vinegar or?
Oh, mate, yeah. Like every time I go into a chippy, when they ask me that question, I always say lots of vinegar. Like I love it so vinegary.
So you do specify, yeah.
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
Kind of.
Every time, like without a doubt. And then even when I pick it up from the counter, I'll say, "Did you put lots of vinegar on there?"
I mean, you still put some more on when you get home.
Still
if you're
put some,
taking them
yeah,
home.
absolutely. Because they only do like the top layer, and like they don't think. Obviously, I understand. Like if you're at a place like the Golden Galleon, they're turning over people like so quickly that they ain't got time to like shake the bag and re-vinegar. That's on me. So yeah, I'll either take a few extra sachets of vinegar and salt as well, and just give it a shake and then reapply.
Is the Golden Galleon a box chippy or do they wrap it in paper?
Oh yeah, so you get like they don't even wrap it actually. You just get a paper bag. So they just
All right, yeah.
dump it all in a paper bag and then you just eat it out of that. They don't even have like napkins. They just give you like pieces of paper that's just paper that I imagine if you want something wrapped, it's just that paper. They just don't have napkins.
Oh, so kind of like your typical kind of like white chip paper.
Yeah, exactly. But it does nothing. Like if you've got like grease around your mouth, it just slides off that. It doesn't do anything at all.
Absolutely useless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to dip or pour over your chips?
Well, I was always like a mushy peas man, but for some reason, and I'd love to know if this is a common problem for everyone else, but the mushy peas like always give me the shits.
I mean, yeah, potentially.
I don't know why. Like I don't know what would be in there that would sort of offend my stomach. But it's like anytime I get it, it's just like immediately I'm like, fuck, I gotta go to the toilet.
But you still get it regardless because you enjoy them so much.
I did for a long time, but now I'm just like, nah. And before the mushy peas phase, I was always without a doubt curry sauce. But it seems like there's just too much like variation with like what curry sauce chippies are using now. Because I always used to like that one that had like the little chunks in it, and it was like more of like an luminous yellow color.
Yeah, I know exactly which one you mean. Yeah,
that's a good one. Now more and more what you see is a textureless green sauce, which don't taste quite right. So I just avoid it. If they've got that Stokes ketchup, it's not a sachet, is it? It's kind of like a vessel. It's like a mini bottle, I guess. But yeah, so if they've got Stokes ketchup or Stokes brown sauce, I'll go for that. Brown sauce if it's a sausage, or ketchup if it's fish.
And with your mushy peas, because I know a lot of people will add a lot of salt, I guess in your case, maybe add vinegar to them?
I've never heard of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think it's,
Maybe that's where I've been going wrong.
It's a bit of a thing where, you can put some, the extra acid might ail your stomach.
Yeah.
A bit of vinegar into the mushy peas to mix it around sort of thing, give them a little bit of a tang.
Holy shit. I might have to go back to them. I might have to try that.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth giving it a go.
It's gonna be a Tory chippy if they've got black pepper on show as well, haven't they? I mean, black pepper in mushy peas would be good.
Again, not something you ever get offered at a chippy.
No.
I don't know if I'd ever put it on a chippy. I never think to. I have it at home. I have the choice.
Yeah.
I've never taken it. Yeah, maybe I'll try it one day. I don't know. Might blow my mind. What kind of pop would you order at the chippy?
Pepsi Max. Always Pepsi Max. The Golden Galleon has it, but if they don't have that, then they'll usually have a nice reliable can of Rio. So I'll go for that.
Oh, yeah. A classic, yeah. There's something about Pepsi Max. I personally I think it's the top pedestal in regards to that kind of selection of drinks.
Yeah, 100%. Like it doesn't matter like what time of day.
Yeah.
I'll get up and crack open a can of Max, but
Yeah.
yeah, no. I mean, like full fat Coke, I think that's reserved for sort of like a long walk in summer. Like if you've clocked in like 20,000 steps,
Yeah.
a good can of Coke is good. But then again, like I'm probably craving like a nice beer at that point anyway.
A cold drink, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing with Coke, again, one of the places I don't mind a full fat Coke, either hungover or, like you say, in the summer, been out on a big hot walk with the dog.
Hmm.
And me and my wife always say this: there's nothing quite like a fountain Coke. Sometimes,
Oh yeah,
either at
yeah.
a pub or really just in particular, just like a McDonald's fountain Coke.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
And I think that's why it's kind of perfect hangover because we never really get McDonald's anymore.
No,
You know, not through, I mean, I've got nothing against it, but we just
it's never a good choice.
no, it's not. And like, you know, it was an easy choice for a while,
Mm.
but now it's just like I think when you're hungover, it just kind of like drags you in, and like that 2 double cheeseburgers and a fountain Coke. There's just something about it, like I swear down. But yeah, that's one of the other places I think can be
Yeah, man.
reserved for a
Uh,
good full fat Coke.
yeah, I mean, pub Coke and a packet of salt and vinegar crisps is like there's few things that beat that, to be honest.
Yeah, you a scratchings man? While we're talking about pub snacks,
No, so yeah, I don't really like, I eat a bit of fish, but yeah, I don't like scratchings at all. Like even
yeah,
when I ate like meat, I
yeah,
still didn't like them. I mean, like the hard ones, like the crispy ones are good, but I just think like the risk of like the soft ones with the hair in
yeah.
was just always like that's not worth the
I
risk. I'll
love
get
it.
scampi fries or salt and vinegar.
Yeah, scampi fries are good. There's something about scratchings. I just love them. Like someone tried to put me off them once by being like, you know, Rez, they're just fat, fried in fat, right? I'm like, you trying to put me off them, or you trying to like
That's the
push
selling
me
point,
towards
brother.
them? Yeah, yeah, 100%. So if you go to the Golden Galleon, do they normally have fish ready, or do you have to shout up your order as you go in and wait 5-10 minutes?
Because they're so busy, they'll have it all ready. Like if you're getting like a more niche option, like if you were to go for a fish cake, I reckon they've got to chuck that in. But I think haddock, they've got them. They've got like 3 or 4 of them ready to go, and they're
Mm.
pretty quick turnover. So you know it's not just been sat and in the little display cabinet for like half an hour or something. Like that's
Yeah, I think that's fine.
mm,
If you've got a high turnover, I think that's I understand why chippies do them fresh and they
mm,
want them to be the best they can be, and I'm all for it.
mm,
But I always think that the really good chippy around this way, as you'd expect on a Friday night, you know, the queues down the street for it.
yeah,
And I'm like, you know you're gonna be churning out 200 fish tonight at least. Like
yeah,
you could just keep them on a constant rotation. You don't need to wait for someone to come in and be like, you've got the till receipts. You must be able to see, like, we've never not sold less than say 90 fish in an evening.
yeah,
Like, so let's just keep churning them out.
yeah,
So I do often think that maybe a little bit of foresight could help.
yeah.
But you walk into a chippy, say you do fancy something different, you shouted up and you're having to wait 5-10 minutes. If you're having to sit around and wait for it, would you order anything to have a little snack on while you were waiting?
Oh yeah, I'm getting myself a gherkin.
Oh, a gherkin.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
nice.
love a gherkin. Again, is like obviously I'm a vinegar fiend,
Yeah.
so yeah, I love them. I mean, even the sort of like if it's a big one, it's a crunchy one. Like
Mm.
fuck yeah. If it's like the softer, sort of like more mushy one, I can deal with it. But I'm just like a little bit disappointed. I'm not been in that fucker.
Have you had any of those huge, big single ones that come in a pack of
Yeah, yeah,
like?
yeah.
So yeah, so there's like an international supermarket just on the street around the corner from us,
Mm,
and on the counter they've got ones that are like, for anyone that's not seen them, it's almost like it kind of looks like almost like an ice pole or a Mr. Freeze or something like that,
yeah.
but it's a big fucking chunky pickle in a thing. But then some of them have like either a really spicy
Hmm.
like liquid that they're in, or I think there's one on the counter in that gaff. It's like a Mountain Dew one. It's like a
Yeah,
pickle in like Mountain Dew and stuff. Have you tried any of
yeah.
those big bad boys?
We where we used to live, we live near like a Londis. I would often get the Warhead one, like the sour one.
Yes, like the sweets. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, that's good. You've got to like put it in the fridge though, because they don't keep them in the fridge, so they're like
No, no.
room temperature. But if you put it in the fridge, and as well, like if you like cocktails, I don't know if you ever drink like a pickleback cocktail. I think it's basically just like whiskey and pickle juice.
All right. Okay.
You use the juice from the big pickle and put it in your pickleback, and it's. I highly recommend. There's probably people listening to this going like, "Oh, that's fucking gross." But like, I love a dirty martini as well. Like, I'll drink the fucking brine out of an olive jar. I'll put like the pickle juice in a martini as well.
Maybe you can have that after the Rio.
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah.
Before we close, we like to give guests the opportunity to kind of push anything that's coming up, either with their band, label, whoever it is they're representing. So we call this section. What have you got coming up in the world of Celestial Sanctuary? It looks like you've got quite a couple of really cool months coming up.
Yeah, so we're just about to go on tour with Incantation, which, like, as a death metal band, that is just such a mad sentence to me. Like, Incantation are a band that, like, all four of us like look up to. So yeah, we got that coming up. We're going to be out. I can't reel off all the places we're going to be, but it's kind of like the usual UK circuit. Unfortunately, we're not going to make it over to Bristol or Wales, but we are making it to Ireland for the first time, which is amazing. And then after that, we've got a show in Norwich, which is kind of like a local thing for us. And then we've got Download, which, again, to say like we're playing Download is fucking nuts, man. Like I went to Download for the first time in 2004, so it's kind of like literally 20 years later, like I finally done it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be wild. I mean, the fact as well that we're playing not only the same stage but the same fucking day as Dying Fetus is just
Oh, really?
like, you know, the stars have aligned. Like, this is it's the stuff dreams are made of. So yeah, we're so stoked on that, man. And I kind of said at the start of the podcast with, like, you know, like the people that are so kind in reviews and all of that, and you know, I'd never take any of this for granted. So it's like I'm going to be making the most of that 25-30 minutes that we've got on stage, and I just got to try and not get tunnel vision and enjoy every second of that.
Yeah, 100%. I think Download, obviously, people jump to it and it's quite easy for a big festival to slag off and be like, oh, it's the same headliners, or it's shit this year. But I think one thing it's always done, especially over the past kind of 4 or 5 years, and like, I apologize if I've got this wrong, but I think some of that may have been to do with so there's a guy that used to put on all the shows in Manchester back in the day, a guy called
Yeah,
Cameron Hack.
yeah.
And obviously, you know Cam probably, and you know, he moved over to Live Nation, and you know, he's one of the kind of bookers for Download now. And I don't know if it's been an influence of him to try and not make it more extreme, because I think, you know, there's always been that kind of element. You know, I've seen, you know, right from the first Download, you know, Meshuggah and, yeah, bands like that on stage. There's always been that element of heavy bands,
Mm.
but there seem to be these really cool, like, on those kind of maybe fourth stages now, where you'll have almost like a full day that, like you say, it's, you know, it'll be, you know, Dying Fetus, yourselves,
Hmm.
it, you know, could be bands like Incantation, you know, it's, yeah, they've had bands like, you know, like the Batushkas and people like that over the, you know, over the more recent years that
Mm.
they maybe wouldn't have had in the past.
Oh yeah, totally.
So I think the people that kind of look at the main stage and be like, oh, it's just all the same old bands again, I don't want to look at this. It's like, just look further down. Like, there's plenty there to fill your day.
Yeah, like you say, if you look below the main stage, like, it is such a heavy lineup. Like, it's ridiculous. The stage that we're playing, just the day we're playing, is like us, Guilt Trip, Dying Wish, Dying Fetus, Fear Factory, and I think there's like a couple more. Harriet are playing the same day as us as well.
So good.
Yeah, and yeah, shout out Cam. Like, he's been such a massive supporter of this band really early on as well. Like, you know, we got to play shows with like Gatecreeper when they came over in 2021. He put us on with like Cattle Decapitation. It's people like that, yeah, he's working for a big company like Live Nation and doing these huge festivals, but like that guy and his team and the other people that do the booking, like, they've definitely got their finger on the pulse of the underground, and like, people can't slag off festivals like that. It's the biggest thing we've got in the UK, and when bands like Harriet and Pest Control and fucking us can get on a thing like that, it's an amazing thing, and it just means that like next year, you know, hopefully we'll see like someone like Burner on there, or like some more Church Road bands, you know, because it will happen.
And like you say, they don't need to embrace that. They could easily fill that with other radio rock bands or Kerrang TV. I know it's not, I'm not sure if it's still around anymore, is it? But Kerrang TV kind of friendly bands and things like that. And it wouldn't affect the ticket sales.
No.
You know, even the years where everyone's like, oh, this is rubbish, they still sell, you know, 90,000 tickets.
Yeah.
It's never going to be quiet. So, you know, all power to them for putting that out there. And, you know, I think it works both ways. Yes, you'd sell tickets, whoever you were playing. So, you know, go a bit more the extreme, because, you know, there's 60,000 people that might be going to, you know, see those kind of main stage bands and that are just there for for the kind of the fun weekend and for all that,
Mm.
they're going to be there regardless. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I remember the last time I went, I just went for the day. Was it last year, the year before? It turned out it ended up being like a great day. I think we were playing a show on the Sunday, so I could only really go on the Saturday. Got there and like, the first band we saw, so Malevolence were on the second stage at like 12 o'clock lunchtime.
Fucking
And
hell.
it was like the biggest crowd I think I've probably ever seen on that stage.
Mm.
It was insane. It was amazing to see, like say, a UK band that have been slogging away for the past 10,
Oh, mate.
12 years.
They've been slogging away since they were like probably before they're even teenagers.
Yeah, 100%. And, they just had 30,000 people, arguably 20,000 people. I'm rubbish at judging crowds, but like eating out of their hands. And then, off the back of that, we tried to go and see, we'll go and see Bleed From Within. And we couldn't get anywhere near the tent because it was like 9 deep. And we're like,
Amazing.
this is cool. And then like Will Haven were playing. And this was all just dotting around between like, the smaller stages.
Yeah.
Because I think that was the year that Harriet played as well. Last time when they played that first show there. And so if the tents are 10 deep for these bands, keep booking them.
Oh, hell yeah, man. And all it means is that like, these shows that they put on at like the Underworld or like Rebellion or the Sarangata or like Boom, it just means that it's going to like help those shows fill out more. So it has like such a knock-on effect that I just see a band's name on a poster like Download, I'll be like, oh, they're playing like near me or they're playing this tiny little show. I'm going to see them before they blow up. And it definitely happens. Like 100% happens.
Yeah, just having names on posters like that. I mean, we saw it just playing Arctangent and being featured on the official playlist. The amount of interaction we got, in the period between being announced and the actual show was amazing. And Arctangent's a small festival compared to it's 10,000 compared to the 100,000 or whatever of Download. So like I said, just being on a poster, and I assume kids still do it now. It's even easier to do it now than it was when we were 15, 16 with Spotify and stuff. But, you get that, like say the Ozfest 2002 or Download 2003 lineup.
Yeah.
And you'd be looking at it and you'd be like, oh, loads of bands. Oh, I don't know who this band are. I'm going to go and try and check them out because they might be cool.
Yeah.
Like, you would go through the lineup and be like, oh, I don't know who these are. Like, I'll go and have a listen to them. Yeah, especially to try and fill your day out. And
100%. When I went in 2004, I think my mate just picked out Bullet for My Valentine because they played that year. And they were in the smallest tent. And he was just like, oh, should we go watch these? They've got, obviously we were 15, so cut some slack. He said, they've got a cool name. Should we go watch them?
Yeah.
And we watched them. And honestly, like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, the tent was dead. But, that kind of like counteracts the point. But like, look where they are now. Like, fucking hell.
Yeah. Oh, it's happened to everybody. Horizon. I remember seeing Horizon on the smallest stage on one of the earlier Downloads when they just brought out the first album. And it was kind of busy because obviously they got to a certain level pretty quickly, obviously off the back of the EP. But again, say even if it was a half full tent, which they would have been stoked about at the time, I think, and then to go on and headline it. And I think we're going to see it now. I think probably arguably the next band is probably I can see Sleep Token headlining Download. Potentially, it wouldn't surprise me if they did next year. I think these arena shows have maybe been a test to see how popular they are, and then they sold them out in 10 minutes or something. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were there soon. And I saw them to a 3/4 full third stage at Arctangent 4 or 5 years ago, whatever. And
what a trajectory.
Yeah, it's been insane. Absolutely insane. And again, it's one of those bands that, again, they've got popular, so it's cool to hate them and slag them off or whatever. You can't deny what they're doing. They're ridiculously good at it.
Yeah.
It's not their fault that people have jumped on it and they've got as big as they have. Why shouldn't they enjoy it? And, the proof's in the pudding. If you can sell 23,500 tickets to the Co-op Arena in Manchester in 15 minutes or whatever, then who the fuck is anyone to say, you don't deserve to be there, sort of thing.
Yeah. I think when you get to that point, you can make the argument that they're not shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they might not be your thing, but they're clearly not shit. Yeah.
I wonder if there's any bookies that would take like the bet on like, I reckon in 10 years, Malevolence will be headlining Download.
I mean, they might do. You hear about those things, don't you, where dads, when their kids are like 14 playing football, they'd be like, I'm going to bet £10 that his son would play for England.
Yeah.
And then they talk about it when they come on as a sub for their first game. And it's like, oh, his granddad's just won 50 grand or whatever. So I guess I'm sure you might be able to find a bookie that would take it somewhere. But
I'll have a look.
Yeah, have a look. I mean, if the bookie's any good, the odds will be quite low because it wouldn't surprise me if they got there at some point.
Yeah.
Right, perfect. Well, Tom, I think that's everything we've got to chat about. Thanks for joining me. It was amazing to meet you and chat to you. I hope tour goes great. I hope download goes great, and hopefully we'll get to catch up again soon.
Excellent. Yeah, it's been a pleasure being on, and yeah, I've been looking forward to talking about chips all day. So yeah, buzzing. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Take care, mate.
Cheers, man. Bye.
That was Tom from Celestial Sanctuary. He took us to the Golden Galleon in Aldborough, where he ordered a regular portion of chips with a haddock to help out the cod numbers, and he'll take a massive pickle to snack on while he waits. He insisted on having lots of vinegar and also wanting mushy peas as long as they don't give him the shits. All that's washed down with a tin of Pepsi Max. As always, I want to see your chippy teas too, so don't forget to tag us in any pics or let us know your favourite local chippy on socials using @RiffandChips. Thanks to Rob Collier for providing the dive bomb, Edgar Gibbs for the screams, and Ryan Westwood for the artwork. See you in a week's time for our next episode.